Welcome to the Be Dadly podcast, where we discuss all things dadly, from being an entrepreneur while caring for toddlers to raising screenagers and talking the birds and the bees. We're here to help you traverse the vast and dynamic landscape of fatherhood. Enjoy practical advice, lots of puns, and even a few heart-touching moments.
And the dad jokes are pretty good too.
And now your host, Brandon Jones.
All right, we got Will Carr here. William, thank you so much for being with us today, brother. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Illinois. I grew up on, I had about as wholesome of a upbringing as you could imagine. I grew up on a farm, like 2-3 hours from a shopping mall. And so basically everyone in my family farmed, it's corn, soybeans, wheat. My mom was a school teacher. So, it was dinner every night, family dinners every night, going to church on Sundays, having big family dinners, for Sundays at lunch. It was, I had I don't want to say sheltered, but I had a really awesome upbringing. I had a great family. My parents were amazing. So,
and then where are you living today?
So now I live in Colorado. I live up in the mountains in Evergreen. So we're about 45 minutes west of Denver, up in the mountains. And it's awesome. It still lets me have my country roots, but close to the city, close to things, lots of things for the kids to do. Being in Colorado, always spending time outside. I ski a lot, hike a lot, camp a lot. Just still try to stay active.
And you serve that kind of active lifestyle, with your business. Tell the listeners kind of like what your business is and what you guys do.
I have a company called Genesee Nutrition, and we make the best tasting, healthiest protein bars on the planet, hands down. And we're named after Genesee Mountain here in Colorado, which for anyone that's familiar with Colorado, Genesee is as you're on I-70 and you're coming out of Golden and you're headed west towards, all the epic adventures that are in the Colorado mountains. Genesee is the first place where the Continental Divide opens up and you have the snow-capped peaks. And so it's the first place you really feel like you're in the mountains as opposed to being in the city. So the idea behind it is Genesee is where your journey starts. Like that's where your adventure begins. And so, everything that we love to do, hiking, biking, skiing, camping, paddleboarding, kayaking, fill in the blank. There's so many awesome things to do in Colorado. That's where the adventure begins.
It's funny too, because Genesee, it reminds me of Genesis, which is like the beginning.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Very cool. And how many kids do you have, Will?
We have 3 in our house. I'm in a blended family. So one of them is my blood. And the other 2 are Courtney's from a previous relationship. And so, we have this very awesome house. We've got 3 kids, all kindergarten, 1st grade, 4th grade, 5, 7, and 10 years old. So just like incredibly fun time because they all just they're at that stage where they all have really unique and vibrant personalities. They're all very different. So even like having to parent them all in different ways and approach them all in different ways, it can be complex, but it's also really fun. So I love being a dad. I love being a dad. How
old were you when you became a dad?
When my daughter was born, I was 25. Cool. I was 25, living a completely different life then. It was not an on purpose thing. So, I definitely had to completely change my lifestyle. But it was absolutely the best thing that's ever happened to me. Totally grounded me, and brought me back to earth in ways that I needed to be humbled, and in ways that I needed to be grounded that I wasn't. So.
Will you paint us a picture a little bit? Like you say, it was like, it was really a big change. What was life like previous to, you getting, you having a child?
Yeah.
In that time.
Yeah. Well, so I guess to take a step back a little, I played basketball in college and I played basketball overseas. And then when I moved to Denver, I was living on the 25th floor of a high rise downtown Denver, just young and single and just out partying, enjoying life, basically all the stereotypical things, that people, as they're listening to this, probably have going in their mind is probably true. And so just living this, what I thought was the dream at the time. And then as the way, as life does, it always has a way of, showing us what we think is a dream or showing us what we think is so awesome, humbling us in a way and totally 360, 180 degree change, And so, it was very different. And then, being put into a situation where, I became a single dad very quickly. I was with my daughter's mom for maybe like a year and a half or so. I only knew her a couple months before she got pregnant. Mm-hmm. But then coming into a situation where I had to take the full responsibility for my daughter on my own, living on the 25th floor of a high rise wasn't so didn't make as much sense.
Wasn't conducive to the family life, huh?
Yeah.
So I can totally relate on this. And so let me ask you this question. So you guys, I'm assuming you tried to make it work for like a year and a half. You're like, you know what, let's just see what we can do here. And then how'd that, because it's not every day that you see like a dad having custody of his child alone. How'd that happen? What was that? If you don't mind, I mean, if it's too personal, I understand, but how did that transition happen where you guys are taking care of the child together and then, you become the dad solo?
Yeah, well, I would say we knew each other for a couple months before she got pregnant, and then went through the whole pregnancy, just trying to make the relationship as best as it could. We moved in together, and just relatively shortly after our daughter was born, her mom just, like I said, I was living this very young single. She was also living that same sort of lifestyle. And so very shortly after our daughter was born, she just wanted to go back to living that sort of lifestyle. So, she just wasn't around very much. And so, and I don't mind getting into all the actual details, but, it was just at some point, she just really wasn't around at all.
Wow.
So, it became a point where, like I said, I grew up so wholesome and so conservative. And so I definitely thought that, well, now we have a baby together. That means we're supposed to be together forever. But being in a relationship that is very unhealthy and being in a relationship that, does not conduce in happiness is not the best environment for a child to grow up in either. So, when we split up, then she really just wasn't around at all for a long time. So things have gotten better, much more consistent. Her mom has every other weekend. And she's doing really good with that. And, they're bonding, they have a good relationship. Even the co-parenting side is getting much better, even just being able to work through that and be able to have conversations. But it was really tough for a while.
Wow. Yeah. It's like we all have to grow up eventually. And then when you do, you realize, oh yeah, I have kids. I have a kid in the world, got to be the parent for them. Wow. That's amazing, man. It's interesting. My firstborn son was also unplanned. And I was actually 19 years old. I had just been dating his mother for maybe a month whenever she got pregnant. I knew her in high school, but we had really just kind of started dating. And I mean, we were official, but we were so unofficial at the same time. For example, there'd be times where she would go off and party for days at a time. And I wouldn't even hear from her and we'd fight about that. And it was really just not healthy at all. And then all of a sudden this child comes in the world. It's like, whoa.
Same situation.
Yeah, it really shook us both up. And And then ultimately I ended up with custody of him, and she kind of checked out, unfortunately, in a big way. And she struggles with some illness around addiction and stuff that we've tried to be pretty supportive about the whole time and let her know, like, we don't see her as an enemy. We're here for her. We'd like to support her getting well and whatever she needs. And we don't blame, shame, or, cause guilt or anything like that. We really try to be supportive, but she's never really been able to really re-engage. And I think she struggles with a lot of shame, which is really hard. So it's really nice to hear that your daughter gets a new, is having a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What's it like co-parenting? So like now you have this blended family. What's it like for you serving as the dad for these kids that are not your own, but they're in the same house and, you guys all live together. You're kind of the father figure, at least in that household. What's that like?
Yeah. I think having the opportunity to also be a dad and a parent to in a blended family, that kids that aren't necessarily, your own blood. Really, it's great because it gives you this opportunity to have like different perspective and, to be able to be aware of, because as you're going to, like, naturally you have a tendency to parent those kids differently, or you are more hesitant to discipline, or you feel less like it's initially you feel like you have less authority, because they're not technically your blood. And so, in Courtney's kids, they have a great dad too, that, sees he's there with him 2 or 3 days a week. And so, so there's not like near the gap to fill either. It's not that I'm having to step in, and be like their only father figure. But I think that it's interesting because it allows the opportunity to be able to even check yourself. And then so when I notice differences of, in this more so as time goes on, things become more even, and things become more easy to work around how you're doing the parenting between your own child or your partner's children. But it gives you that opportunity to really put yourself in check, because it's like, where am I not showing maybe them as much love or compassion as what I would show my daughter that is my blood? Or also the other way of, where am I maybe being too easy, or where am I maybe being even overly critical of my daughter because I see her more as a direct relation to me, so it's all these things that you're able to put in perspective, and it gives me the opportunity to really see those things and be aware and conscious, so that I can be a better parent to all three of them. Ultimately, by seeing where I'm doing better, where I'm doing worse, or whatever, and then ultimately, you just get better as you're more aware of what you're doing.
That's really cool. Yeah. So you have like all these different reflections that you wouldn't necessarily have normally had, or maybe, it's interesting is I was thinking, as you were saying, is like, we went back to the point where we were all in tribes. I bet we would have more of that experience where you're thinking about the whole tribe, you're thinking about the other kids, and, people are parenting other, maybe, just differently, but people are approaching other children in the tribe or in the group differently than how we would. For example, our families are so isolated today. We would never think to help another child, correct another child, do anything like that. We hesitate to even say anything. Even when we're at the playground, there's a little kid, and you're like looking around like, who's the parent of this one? This one needs a little help right now, So yeah, it's really cool that you have this unique, and I'm sure actually there are so many people out there right now, they're blending families and that have children, and especially as we see marriage marriages have been falling apart for a while, at least the way that we traditionally think of them. And there's all these new emergent things like co-parenting and now blended families and stuff. And it's like a whole experience that so many are having to go through. I know, for example, my former partner, my son wasn't her child, and she was 6 years younger than me. So she actually couldn't, I don't believe she could even have had my son, which is interesting. And so when people would see them together, it was often like, oh, is this your little brother? They also kind of looked alike in similar ways. Like they both have blonde hair and blue eyes. And so they just kind of had like, and even a similar skin color. And so people never thought that was his mother, but she was having to step into this role that there was a gap. And it was like a unique challenge, I think, for her, in that, you know, he was older, she was younger. So it's kind of like, could she discipline him in the same ways? And then also she's not his parent. And sometimes he wasn't really showing her respect the way that he would show another person respect, or an adult respect, or even a mother respect. And we did a lot of therapy around their relationship. It was like, a lot of the therapy, what we were doing, we were always talking about, hey, this dynamic, and how can we, you know, encourage you guys to be more connected? And, you know, it was kind of a struggle at times where he wanted to reject her parenting, you know, and he didn't want to accept her as a mother. Now, what's crazy is that as we started to separate, he ended up like wanting to accept her more. Mm-hmm. So it was like, whoa, wait, I didn't want her out of the picture. I just didn't. It's like, oh, you didn't want her in. It's kind of, I want her in the frame. I just don't want her completely in the frame. So there's also some unique things, you know, in that note. They actually do have a great bond now, but it wasn't always that way. It was kind of interesting. I'm curious to know, like, what are some of the bigger challenges that you've, you know, faced as a father? Maybe some that you've overcome, maybe some that you're still struggling with, but like some challenges of just being a dad that maybe you've gone through, others would definitely be able to relate to, I'm sure.
You know, I think the awesome thing about parenting is just that it's like one of the most, it is, I'm going to say, the most rewarding thing you can ever do. But it's also like the most frustrating thing, and the thing that'll get under your nerves and just drive you crazy, because is this other human, you know, that you are, you're responsible for them. You're there to teach them. You're there to be their mentor. You're there to help them and guide them. But they're also like this beautiful mirror for you. Like, the crazy times is when, you know, they'll like literally repeat your words back to you, and you're like, oh, you know, like in some sort of situation where, you know, you're trying to get onto them about something, and it's like they repeat what you say, and then it's like, how do I argue with myself?
Yeah. That's great.
And so,
I know exactly what you're talking about too. We were just experiencing that yesterday with one of my little guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, so, you know, I think that just being, for me, one of the biggest struggles was being so young. And, you know, traditionally, like people in more traditional households, there's nothing to think someone, you know, they're going to college, they're getting married at 21, 22, they're obviously having kids at 25. You know, that was kind of like, you know, the whole white picket fence, you know, American Dream type thing. But for me, it was really just like just a huge shift in my life. I lost a bunch of friends, you know, that turned out, you know, they weren't really my friends. You know, they were there because we were all partying, we were just running in the same circles. You know, it showed me a lot about like what genuine and real relationships and connections are, too. But yeah, you know, I would just say I'm also like a very stubborn person. So seeing all the stubbornness come out of the children, it just like, you know, creates these instances where you're butting heads. But, you know, it's that's where it comes back to, you know, just take a deep breath, like be calm, be present, be in the moment. Like, how do I be the adult here? You know, I can't expect a 5-year-old to have the emotional intelligence of what I should have. Totally. So, you know, like, just showing compassion and being patient. I've had to learn a ton of patience through parenting. So, and then when you have to do it all on your own, which like, I'm sure you can relate to this, I don't have any family that lives out here in Colorado either. My family's all in Illinois. So, it was really tough when, my daughter, by the time my daughter turned 4, a little bit before that is when I got into my current blended family situation. And so up until then, I was trying to, I'm an entrepreneur, trying to run my own business, do the things I need to through the day, but also, taking care of a child every day. At one point I had like daycare 2 days a week, but other than that, I was doing it all on my own. And so being able to balance that, I think the balance of that was really tough, but it's also like now the kids are in school and, we may homeschool them at some point. We homeschooled them all through COVID, initially through 2020. But I'm just incredibly grateful for those first 4 years that, especially as a dad, most dads don't get that opportunity to be so hands-on during those first 4 or 5 years, before the kids go off. And then, most dads are out working or they have their 9 to 5 or, and so I got this opportunity to bond with my daughter in a way that, that time is over now. And I'm just so grateful for all of that one-on-one time that we did have. So
wouldn't it be funny if you could have said to yourself in those moments where you're like, really wishing you didn't have to have responsibility for them so much, hey, you're actually going to really appreciate this time. Like, hey, it might sound crazy, but eventually this time is going to be over. She's going to be in school during the day. There's going to be so many blessings in that regard, but also maybe take this moment to really appreciate getting to see them in this age. My son is now 5 and it blew by so fast. Like my youngest son is 5 now. And because I did not have my oldest son 1 through 5, I actually got custody of him at 5 years old. And for years I kept asking, can he come and stay for, with me for a little while? And she was always like, no, you can't parent him. You're always partying. You're this, you're that. And I was always like, well, when he was here, I'm not going to do that. I would be doing something different. I'd be being his father. And she just said no to me all the time. And ironically, when I got custody of him, when she started to kind of step away, she actually told me one time, she was like, I just feel like you're a way better parent and I'm really struggling. And I feel like it's bad for me to even be around him. I was like, whoa, that's actually what she was always fearing about me ended up being her.
Yeah.
Which was really a crazy projection. Yeah. Where she was like, oh, I'm the one that I can't be responsible for him. When I'm around him, I'm not being responsible. She was abusing drugs and that was awful. Like we found that out later, but it was like, whoa, this was all a big projection. She didn't think I would be capable of it. But because I missed those years 1 through 5 with my oldest, man, I was super really excited about having my youngest, where I was like just super hands-on. We made all kinds of videos. We'd go out and catch wild things. And we always did these crazy dad things. We'd build cages and traps and go check on them all the time. We'd wear headlamps and go in the yard and look for scorpions and stuff at night. And we just did all these wild things. And, I just brought a lot of excitement. And actually his mother, because it was her firstborn child, she was always like, oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. I don't know how, people do this. This is so challenging. And she would get really flustered and frustrated. And I kept trying to tell her hey, this is going to go by fast. This seems like it's long right now, but before you know it, he's going to be, 5, 10, 15. It goes by so quickly. I really want to encourage you to soak up what we're getting now, because he's changing every day. If we blink the next week, he's different. So he was changing. They changed so rapidly, especially in those first couple of years. So I am curious. So I wanted to dig in on something because I think so many of the listeners would be interested to hear a lot of these people are entrepreneurs or aspiring to be an entrepreneur. How did you manage? Were you an entrepreneur when you first, how long have you been an entrepreneur, one? And then two, how did your schedule and your priorities and everything shift? And what does it look like today to have maybe a bit more balance? What does that transition look like? And how long has that been the case?
So when my daughter was first born, I was doing medical sales. But relatively quickly, I'm trying to think of the time frame. I started my first supplement company pretty shortly after she was born. I want to say she was less than a year old when I went full in on this. For me, it's really just like time management, like you got to understand like when, but then also when kids are so young, they're also really stationary in some ways. And, my daughter was able to play by herself really well. So, she would be, when she's 1 or 1.5 or even 2, I would say I was kind of always in at times the negative part of this, I felt like, because I was kind of always like 1 foot in here and 1 foot in here.
Which can be draining, right? I mean,
totally. Because it's the beauty of us having these cell phones, right?
Right.
We can always be working, especially as an entrepreneur. I mean, 99% of what I do is on my cell phone. I use my laptop here and there, and then, I have my in-person meetings or whatever. But so I was kind of always here and always there. But, I think the main thing was, and for me living in Colorado, is I would always put my phone away. And I would take my daughter and we would go and do hikes. We would go and do adventures. We would go outside, even if it was just going and playing in the yard. But taking that time where I would totally get away from work to where I could really focus on her and engage. It's really that time management, just making that decision of, okay, I'm going to be doing this now, and then I'm going to be doing this then. And what I found is I actually get a lot more done too when, I have a hard time focusing on 2 things at once. So if I focus on one thing, I can get so much work done in a couple hours.
Yes.
And then focus on her. And then even, when we're here at the house, it was, for me, I'd work for maybe like an hour, and then I'd, play with her for an hour, or like, go back and forth rather than having like these long stints. It was more back and forth, but still being able to focus on what I was doing. And so that worked really well for me. And then, when she was in daycare 2 days a week, I would just really grind out on those days. That'd just be like full send, but then all this, it's like you have no social life anymore, like I'd have a few friends that would still like come up to the house and hang out. But I had like none, like when you're used to like going out and hanging out and seeing people and partying and going to professional games and, like watching live events all the time. And then all of a sudden, boom, you're not doing that anymore. Just a total change. But what that let me do is like really focus my energy in different ways. Like I really channeled my energy into my work and got my fulfillment there. I really channeled my energy into being a dad and got my fulfillment there. And like I said, it really taught me like who my actual true and good friends are. So
yeah, it's interesting. Like the life before is so hedonistic, it's all about our senses and pleasure and, joy and excitement. And then all of a sudden we get this little being that we got to take care of. And while it changes all of that, this more rich and rewarding experience comes through where we actually start leaving legacy. We start thinking about what our virtues are. What are our values? How do we want to help shape this other individual? What do we want their future to look like on this planet? What do we want to teach them and make sure that we're like, becoming ourselves, like through our own embodiment. And that becomes so rewarding and so deep. We wonder how we could have missed it when we were in that shallow hedonistic phase,
I think with these like superficial things, like what you're describing, when those are like taken away or those like fall apart, it was like I wasn't truly near as happy or like really enjoying myself. I thought like all those things were fun, and sure, they were temporarily, but now I'm just like, man, I can't imagine if like I was still, I still know people that live that way, and I'm like, that does not sound interesting to me at all.
Right. Well, and so it is so temporary, like you were saying, like you hit these notes and they're awesome for a moment, but then there's always these big lulls, and then you got to get another one. You've got to keep, feeding the hopper. It's almost like, it's basically like sugar or carbs. It's like, oh, you're going to burn them up so fast that you then have to start going and looking for more. And like all these going out, all these events, while they are fun in the moment, they're like sugar. They're going to burn up quickly, and then they leave you craving something. Where with, raising our children and being a father and stepping up to plate, being an entrepreneur, building something that lasts, really diving in deep to yourself is so much more rewarding. And it actually is like, it's thick and lasting. It's not just going to leave you as soon as. It's frustrating at times, for sure. It's a lot harder, but at the same time, it's more it's more satisfying.
Way more rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And so, it's interesting. Like I totally resonate too with this. Basically, like when you try to have your foot in both worlds at the same exact time, it feels impossible.
Yeah.
It takes up incredible amounts of energy. You get nowhere, and both your work suffers and your child suffers. Like they feel like you're distracted. Your work is like, has this like, stop start kind of experience where it just doesn't ever really hit any kind of peak, and it's just struggling itself. And I've totally found that divide to be really important. And with my younger son, the divide has to happen in closer intervals. Like you were saying, 1 hour of focus time, 1 hour of play time, 1 hour of focus time. Like if I layer them, and I also set expectations with my son, for example, I say, hey, I'm going to work hard for like an hour. And then after this hour, I'm going to take you to the park. How's that sound? And he's like, cool. And I'm like, and I'm going to set a timer so you can actually see when we're getting close. So you don't have to keep asking me how close we are. You can see the timer. And then just doing that alone, setting expectations and making sure that I was layering in attention with him, totally helped him cool his jets, and also made my work a lot more productive. But also the other thing is this, like you were saying, always on, where we live in this like always on society, because we have cell phones, because we have laptops, we have internet connection. As entrepreneurs, it's so easy to get stuck in the on mode. And so and I loved what you said is about, I put my phone away and go on the hike. So the technology is not even with you. You're able to be uber present up in nature with the child, emotionally available, mentally available, spiritually available, physically available, right? For all of their needs. And also having a co-shared experience, which I think a lot of people miss out on, is, we sit at the table and all these people are having different experiences when they look at their interfaces. But when we're sharing an experience, there really is something. That's why we all go, you want to go see a show, a live event, for example, you're sharing that experience with all these other people where you're focusing on the same, show together. It really does have an elevated feeling, right? And when we do that together, like I feel like that's what really fills their cup, is like, oh, they saw the same thing. We kind of looked at it together. We examined it together. We talked about it together. That could be as simple as, oh, look at this bug. Whoa, those are crazy colors on its wings or whatever. But the fact that you're sharing in that moment, really present, is like so super important. And I feel like as long as I fill my son's cup, and both of them with that kind of attention, where I'm emotionally available for them and I've got that kind of presence, it really helps. It helps them kind of go about their day and feel like they're just kind of like able to do things. But the moments where I'm not unable to do that, like I'm like crunching and grinding, I see their behavior change. I see them change. They don't mean for it to at all, but they're just not getting the same attention that they need. So they start acting out. They start, we start having power struggles.
Young. They have these young, undeveloped emotional bodies that they don't even understand. Like most adults don't even understand their emotions. Like
totally.
Most people's like EQ, is the term that gets thrown around, with people's emotional intelligence. That's hard for people. We don't get taught that. No one teaches that to us. And especially if you didn't grow up in a house where that was something that was focused on, You know, they don't teach anything like that in school. There's nowhere that you really get to learn like how to step outside your emotion and be able to witness it rather than let your emotions control you. And when you are young and you're impressionable and you know, all these crazy emotions that build up in you all the time, that's why kids act out. That's why kids get upset. That's why they cry for no reason, you know, and that's why. And so when, as adults, it's our job where if I may be frustrated that one of the kids is crying over something that I feel like is totally stupid. And you know, there might be a part of me that's like, why are you crying? Like, stop, you know, like pull yourself together, you know, but if I also come out in that way where I'm letting my emotions control the way I'm reacting rather than being able to take a deep breath, step outside of that and be like, yeah, maybe this is frustrating me. Maybe this is annoying me. Maybe I know that this is stupid for them to be upset about, but they're also 5, 7, 10, you know, they obviously, why would I expect them to know how to handle that? Especially if I start coming out in the same way they are, then that's what they're going to learn. So, you know, being able to set that example, it really all starts with us. That's why I feel like kids are just such a beautiful mirror, because, you know, it's a reflection of the reason that they are able to get under our skin so much is because we care so much. But that's what lets us really see that in ourselves and be like, okay, it's time for me to grow up. I've got to be the adult. You know, I am the adult. sometimes you got to step into the other room and just like look myself in the mirror and be like, I am the adult. You know?
That's great.
You know,
now, what was your relationship with your father like? Was your father this calm, cool, collected 007 agent, kind of like everything can be going on this way? And he's like, we're going to stay calm. Or was he reactive? What was it like with you and your dad?
No, my dad is super calm. Like, I don't know that I've ever seen my dad like really off kilter at all.
Wow.
You know, just totally relaxed, did his thing. You know, I had an interesting, you know, and I think we're going to get into some of this, but, you know, I had a really interesting family in one of the ways. So, you know, my dad was just a super stable, solid, you know, rock. And, you know, my mom was very much more emotional and like expressive, but, you know, not in, but in like a good way, you know, she was just, you know, she's just a woman.
Yeah.
But so my older brother, I have an older brother, 7 years older than me, disabled in lots of ways, like mostly blind,
Wow.
You know, mentally disabled. You know, you can't have a normal conversation with him. You know, he has things he wants me to repeat, or songs he wants me to sing, or like little ditties and phrases that he wants me to say over and over and over and over. You know, he can't tell you that 2 + 2 = 4, but at the same time, he knows like every song ever written and who sang it. You know, so he's really smart in his own ways.
Right.
But so my parents, particularly my mom, you know, they've been his caregiver. You know, he still lives at home with my parents. And so even growing up, you know, my parents were much more, you know, I'll say like tied down, you know, to the house, you know, having to take care of him. It was not that they couldn't go out, but it was so much more work for them to go out and take him out and have him out in public that, particularly, I'd say my mom suffered from that more. You know, she was the one that would stay, and my dad and I would go and do things. You know, like I remember going to like World Series games with my dad, and like we would go, and my dad would always take me to go do stuff. And so, but my mom would be home with my brother. And, but yeah, I just remember he's always like, my dad is still like the person that I call whenever, you know, because I'm very much more like spontaneous, like shoot from the hip, you know.
You're kind of more your mom in some ways, it sounds
totally.
like.
Very impulsive, you know, like, and so I gotta talk to my dad to be like, okay, like let's talk through this, like let's
reel it in.
Yeah, like at least like give me the opportunity to to think.
Here's some logic.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'm also a big believer in intuition. So sometimes you just got to go with your gut, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It's like knowledge is powerful, but so is imagination.
Yeah.
And Einstein always respected imagination, often more than knowledge. But both are really valuable, right? So it's cool how you had such a balance, with this mother that's kind of like color outside the lines, really fun, very expressive. And then this father that's very maybe stoic, or just kind of like a little bit more calm and like, hey, let's bring some, it sounds like really the perfect family. I mean, you have this masculine, like the quintessential masculine figure, and then this very feminine figure, and you're kind of growing up in the American dream, if you will.
Yeah.
But also with a very big challenge. I mean, I can only empathize with your family, with your sibling. I mean, it must be like, I can't imagine the challenge. It's already challenging raising a child. It's already challenging, just going through all the different phases that we all go through. But then having someone who really has a lot of extra needs and a lot of extra care that they require. Man, my heart goes out to your family. And I also honor you guys in such a big way because, in a big way, you guys are angels, caring for this individual. And I bet you have some epic stories of some laughter that you guys have just like, I can only imagine, because the thing
I would flip on what you're saying is I would say he's the angel. It's not like growing up with a brother that's disabled, it seems like, there's these difficulties, there was these, like my relationship with my brother is so much different. I always kind of felt like I grew up as like an only child in some ways.
Right. Of course.
But he's the one that taught me so much about like, what is love? Like, what is patience? What does it mean to, and also what does it mean to like step into your own potential? My mom will always tell this story of like one day after kindergarten, I don't know why, but I came home and I was just crying. I was so upset. And I was like, Mom, I'm never going to be able to do math because, because Doug can't do math, and I'm just like crying. And so it's one of those things where when you see something like that so firsthand, like we take so much for granted of what our abilities are, and
right.
Like a great person, anyone that's listening to this, like go listen to someone like Jim Quick, like none of us have limitations. You can be the person with the broken brain like Jim Quick and still go on to be a genius, so we all have so much potential, so much to offer the world. And so seeing my brother was always such a motivation for me to go out and be the best that I can be. Mm-hmm. Even though I definitely have not lived up to that at times.
Right.
I've had my youth, I've been and went and done all the things I've done and lived a lot.
But it was like, you didn't want to waste it.
Yeah.
Like, here's this opportunity that my brother will never have. I'm not going to waste this.
Exactly.
That's really beautiful. And it's funny, as I was saying, I was thinking about how this is kind of, God just has these unique ways of, or universe, whatever, has this unique sense of humor, if you will, where things that you think are going to be either like the most challenging become the most rewarding, or things that you think are going to go one way end up going the other. And I was thinking about it as I was kind of saying, like, I can only empathize with the challenges that you guys face. I was also thinking, I can't imagine the type of humor and joy and pleasure that could only come from that experience, because they can be so rich. Like it's like insane the amount of joy and pleasure that you could get that no one else would even be able to tap into without having experienced that firsthand.
Yeah. Because even, my relationship with him now is even still just so childlike, it's not adult, and although it would be awesome to have a brother that I could have conversations with, like you and I are having conversations right now, that's not what I was blessed with. I was blessed with my brother, who is this incredibly unique, and loving and fun person. And so, when I get to go home and see him, it's the it brings me even back into my own childhood. I get to be a kid again, in lots of ways. And so, yeah, just a super unique, rewarding experience.
And you really do have a fairly uncommon, I'll say, childhood too, in that, so yes, you have this disabled brother, but also your father, you found out at, I think you said age 12 or something, that your father was not your biological father. Will you tell the listeners about that and how that's happened, and then what it's been like to reconcile, whoa, this isn't my bio dad, and who's my bio dad, and do I need to know them? Is this what's all that like? Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, yeah, you're right. So at 12, I found out that my dad, that raised me, my dad, the awesome guy that is my dad, was not my biological father. And it was because with my brother being disabled, I'm sure if this happened now, they'd have a better explanation for it or something, but my brother being 36 or 37 or something, whenever he was born, all they were able to tell my parents was that my parents have some sort of genetic thing where if they have kids, there's a high likelihood that their children will be disabled, which is why my brother was disabled. So after several years, I'm 7 years younger than my brother, and after several tries, my parents had went to a sperm bank, they had found a sperm donor, and after several tries, my mom finally got pregnant. And so, I'm what they would call a cryo baby or in vitro. And when I was 12, my parents told me this, and I remember sitting on the bed. I can literally see it now. My parents, telling me this, and for the first few days, it was really tough. I really just kind of felt this sense of loss. I was really confused. I'm like, what do you mean my dad's not my dad? That was really confusing. But ultimately it's given me this opportunity, and even being in a blended family now, it's what does it mean to raise children that aren't necessarily your own? Because they are yours. You are the dad in the house, you are the parent. They do look up to you, they love you. They need you. They appreciate you. Even if, they're being a little shit sometimes.
Totally.
But deep down, they love you, appreciate you, and need you. So, so it was a couple of years ago, I say, when I'd always kind of had this inkling of because all my mom and dad had was a couple papers on this guy, his hair color, his eye color, where he graduated from college, his height, certain things. Not a whole lot. He had filled out a 1 or 2 page questionnaire. So I had a little bit of inkling into who he was and what he cared about. But as I always kind of felt like I wanted to meet him. And I think I initially had hesitation because I didn't know if that would, upset my dad, or if that would somehow cross some sort of boundary. But I remember talking to him about it, and he's like, yeah, I completely understand why you would want to meet this guy. So ultimately I reached out to the cryo bank, and I asked if there's a way to get in contact with them, and they were like, yeah, you can write a letter, we'll give it to him. I was like, can I send it's we're in the digital age now. Can I send
right.
Can I send a video? Can I make a video, and can you pass this on to him? So I made this 3 to 5 minute video, basically just telling him how awesome my life is, and I'm like, I have an awesome life. I love my life. I guess you're going to see this. I don't know that I'll ever meet you, but I would like to meet you. But either way, I'm just incredibly grateful that you did what you did. I don't know why you did it. But I'm just super grateful because I have such an awesome life, and I'm just grateful, and appreciative for you, and just blessed beyond measure. And so within a few days, I got a response, and they're like, yeah, we're going to connect you. He said he'd love to meet. And so a couple months after that, Courtney, my partner, she and I flew out to California. got a camper van. And we were like, worst case scenario, we're just going to go camp, by the beach, and we're going to go meet this guy. And so this guy and his wife now, they got married into their 40s, and they didn't want kids. And but come to find out, I have at least 7 donor siblings. You call them diblings.
Diblings. Wow.
Diblings, yeah. And so he had met a couple of them. My sister actually came at the same time that I went, because she had reached out and finally met him maybe 6 months before.
Whoa.
So it's all super fresh. Yeah. I mean, so there's 7 of us total that we know of so far. And we're all within 2 years of each other. We're all within 24 months. So like my sister that I met is 4 months older than me. And ironically, her mom was also like redheaded Irish, like my mom. So we look so much alike.
What a trip. That is so crazy. Yeah.
And I mean, also the other things are crazy. So every single one of these 7, we all either have like a 4-year, some of them even have up to PhDs, and it's all environmental science and all engineering. 4 of us are engineers.
That is insane.
This is an environmental scientist. Our sperm donor dad, our bio dad or whatever, he was a PhD environmental science graduate. So it's crazy that none of us, had ever, obviously we didn't grow up together or anything, but we all ended up going into these scientific engineering fields. But yeah, I mean, the other real interesting thing I'd say about it is when I met this guy, there was also, although I never met it, never known him ever until I was 29, was how old I was when I met him, 28 or 29. He felt so familiar. There was like this incredible familiarity. Wow. And even like after hanging out for a while, like certain similar mannerisms, like even similar ways of viewing the world in some ways, like, just like even like really similar demeanors. Like he was this very, large but gentle, very large but gentle man, that just, you could tell he cared about the right things. He had a lot of love inside of him, and but also very hardworking, cared about his business, so I mean, it was just really fun to like see those, because it's kind of that nature versus nurture. Like, what is like, right. Who are we? It was this really interesting reflection of, I felt like I came to know myself like way more like through that, and just having a better understanding of, who I am. I think that, not that I would ever had to meet him in order to self-actualize or know myself, but it definitely was like a step in my journey, my own personal growth of knowing who I am and understanding myself and accepting myself. I would say a lot of like accepting myself. There were deep things of, at 12, you're told that who you thought you were is not who you were. And then, you kind of just go on with life, because you're just doing what you got to do, even though some of those things weren't resolved. And then I met him, and a lot of that 12-year-old boy who had confusion around who I was healed.
You kind of closed the genetic loop.
Yeah.
It was kind of open-ended, like, then who is this other part of me that I don't know about?
Yeah.
Who is this lineage that I have that I have no connection to? And then all that's open, and then you can finally close it, even in person, viscerally close it too. It's like, oh, there he is. This is that human being. Wow. That is absolutely epic and truly an amazing and unique story. That it is interesting how this is like a modern thing. I mean, this couldn't have happened. I don't even know how recent this kind of science is or medical treatment is available, but I'm sure it's pretty recent. I mean, I would assume within the last century. I don't know though.
Yeah. I would say the last several decades. I'd have to look it up, but it's not like they were doing it a long time before. I'd say even like 10 years before my parents did something like this, probably wasn't. So, I don't, and I think they made that movie too that tried to make a joke about this stuff with,
was it Arnold Schwarzenegger and?
No, with Vince Vaughn.
Okay.
Was the main character in the movie, and it was like, and he has like 100 kids.
Okay, gosh.
And they're all from him,
I haven't seen this. I'm gonna have to
being a sperm donor. It's Vince Vaughn. I haven't even seen the movie. I need to watch it, but
I wouldn't be surprised if Vince Vaughn does have 100 kids. Yeah. So I was thinking of that. What was the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where it's Arnold Schwarzenegger and then his twin is the little short. What is his name? From Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's that.
Oh yeah.
He's that character. He is so funny. What is his name? Danny DeVino or something like that. Anyways, it was a funny movie where I think it was a medical thing or whatever, where they were twins, and they were like, and then somehow Arnold Schwarzenegger is born, but then also Danny DeVito, they're twins, but it's like, are you serious? How could you guys be twins? Yeah. Anyways, really, really awesome, dude. And, one of the things I'm curious about is, do your kids have like a nickname for you, or do you have like any special moniker that your children use with you or anything?
No, my daughter calls me Dad, and our other two kids in the house just call me Will. Well, yeah. So like when they reference me to other people, they'll like call us, or they'll call me like I'm like their soul dad. That's what they say.
That's really sweet.
Like soul brothers and sisters.
That's really sweet. I love that.
Yeah, that's kind of the terminology that we use. And so I think that's really good if anyone else is out there looking for sort of terminology, calling each other like soul brothers, soul dads, your soul kids.
Yes.
Because
our souls know one another
on a soul level. And
absolutely. That's beautiful.
Just as, my dad, was my soul dad, even though it wasn't my biological dad. He was my only dad growing up. So it's different. It's different in that sense too. It's not like a blended family, but it's
he was meant to be your father. Yeah. Always. Yeah.
On soul level, 100%.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I want to consider you soul fam, Will. Thank you so much for being here. I feel like we're family on a soul level as well. And really just grateful to know you and hear your story. I'm curious if people wanted to find out about Genesee or even be able to follow you, where would they find you and find your company?
Yeah, probably the easiest place to find me, if you go to Instagram and just go to Will Carr Speaks. That's my Instagram. And then, Genesee is the easiest place to find that is Genesee Nutrition. That's on Instagram. That's also, our website. Genesee is spelled Genesee. Like I said, we're named after the Colorado mountain. So you could probably just type Genesee, Colorado mountain, or Genesee protein bars. You'll find, anyone, if you want to reach out, you got questions for me, you want to talk to me, like, I love meeting people, and talking to people. So definitely anyone can reach out to me, find my business, try our protein bars. So, this has been a really fun conversation, Brandon. I look forward to meeting you in person sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise, man. Well, thank you so much for being on. And I look forward to talking to you more in the future. Thanks, Will.
Cool. Thanks, Brandon.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you've received some value from it, please share it with other dads and consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll see you in the next episode. Looking for support with your fatherhood journey? Go to bedadly.com and take our Dadly Disposition quiz and learn helpful insights on how you can overcome power struggles with your kids.